Hello everyone, and welcome to my Bold and Beautiful Today channel. Taylor faints from a heart attack when hears Brooke and Ridge reunite, she's will die. To save the wedding, Taylor Hayes pretends to have heart issues. To bring Ridge Forrester to the altar, how far will Taylor Hayes go on the Bold and the Beautiful? Ridge will eventually meet up with Brooke Logan once more given all of the drama in Naples. However, is there anything more that his fiancée Taylor can do to keep her engagement intact? Read on to find out. Below are spoilers for what will happen next on Bold and the Beautiful. The endgame is bridge. Nothing serves as a more drastic reminder that you are marrying the wrong man than having your life flash before your eyes during a daring water rescue. Brooke Logan informed Ridge Forrester that she was done with Nick Marone's ambiguous antics and was moving on with him. Ridge Forrester then saved Brooke's life in Naples after the writers of The Bold and the Beautiful threw a curveball. Spoilers for The Bold and the Beautiful all suggest that Brooke and Ridge will reunite. According to showrunner Bradley Bell, Ridge and Brooke represent the story's endgame. However, Taylor Hayes will not give up on her man easily. She had just proposed and started organizing the wedding, after all. Will she act dishonestly to prevent Ridge from abandoning her? The return of Taylor's broken heart. Taylor had cardiac issues when she got back to Los Angeles, and it was eventually discovered that she had broken cardiac syndrome. Seeing Taylor's ex-husband with Brooke Logan was practically killing her. After she and Ridge reconciled, Taylor's heart issues suddenly subsided, and she was eventually fine. However, it's been said online that Taylor will get heart palpitations as soon as she finds out about the romance between Brooke and Ridge. Will Taylor pretend to have heart issues so Ridge can't break up with her? In your opinion, who would be Ridge's ideal match? This time, Taylor's medical emergency could be fatal. Taylor Hayes' medical emergency could be fatal. Given Taylor Hayes' history of broken heart syndrome, there is no reason to believe that she will lose her heart the instant she sees Ridge Forrester with Brooke Logan once more. After all, Taylor explicitly told Brooke that she wanted him to keep her hands off her man before their trip to Italy. Because she is aware of their past and Brooke's character, she was concerned about her going to Italy on business with her husband. Many B&B fans think that Taylor will soon find herself in the emergency room since her biggest nightmare has finally come true. But this time, she might die as a result of her broken heart. Ridge didn't say he'll never leave her again, some program reviewers even wrote in their comments. Things is likely that the authors are still figuring things out. At the very least, I would wager that broken heart syndrome will return. What will happen with Taylor Hayes next? Unfortunately, we're not lucky enough for Grace to have faked Taylor's broken heart syndrome, a different show fan commented. When Steffi returns and learns what is happening, she will kill her father, especially if Taylor suffers any harm. Or, more likely, she will simply place the entire burden on Brooke. Dr. Taylor Hayes, the brilliant psychiatrist often rendered powerless by her own heart, orchestrates a desperate, ethically murky masterpiece, faking a resurgence of her life-threatening broken heart syndrome to shackle Ridge Forrester to the altar. This isn't merely a lie, it's a meticulously weaponized vulnerability, a chilling exploitation of Ridge's inherent hero complex and residual guilt, transforming her genuine past trauma into a manipulative shield against the seemingly inevitable gravitational pull of Bridge. Understanding the depth of Taylor's deception requires plunging into the turbulent history of this eternal triangle. Taylor and Ridge share a legacy, children, decades of shared joy and profound pain, the ghost of their fractured marriage always lingering. Her recent return to his arms felt like a hard-won victory against the seemingly unstoppable force of Brooke Logan, Ridge's other great, tumultuous love, whose connection with him possesses a raw, almost primal intensity that has repeatedly shattered Taylor's world. The specter of Bridge looms large, amplified exponentially by the recent Naples trip, a narrative grenade where Ridge literally plunged into danger to save Brooke from drowning. This act wasn't just heroic, it was mythic, a visual metaphor for their unbreakable bond, reigniting smoldering embers into a blaze visible even to the show's creator, Bradley Bell, who has declared them endgame. For Taylor, basking in the fragile glow of their renewed engagement and tentative wedding plans, Naples wasn't just a setback, it was a 5-alarm fire threatening to consume her future. Witnessing Ridge's instinctive, life-risking dive for Brooke was a visceral replay of her deepest insecurities, a confirmation that despite the ring on her finger, Brooke still occupies the core of Ridge's being. The spoilers whispering of Taylor's imminent heart palpitations returning aren't just foreshadowing a medical relapse, they signal the chilling prelude to a calculated performance. Faking broken heart syndrome is a gambit of terrifying audacity precisely because it leverages a very real, very terrifying experience Taylor endured. Her previous episode wasn't fictional melodrama, it was presented as a legitimate, stress-induced cardiomyopathy, a physical manifestation of the soul-crushing agony of watching Ridge with Brooke. The fact that her recovery magically coincided with reuniting with Ridge established a dangerous precedent in Ridge's mind. His presence is her cure, his absence, or perceived betrayal, is her poison. Taylor, the trained psychiatrist, understands the power of conditioning and trauma responses better than anyone in Los Angeles. By feigning the return of those terrifying symptoms, the chest pain, the shortness of breath, the overwhelming weakness, she isn't just telling a lie, she's activating Ridge's deepest programming. She knows his fundamental nature. Ridge Forrester is a fixer, a protector, especially when it comes to his women. He is magnetically drawn to vulnerability he believes he caused or can mend. Seeing Taylor, the strong, capable doctor he loves, seemingly crumbling because of the emotional fallout from his actions in Naples, and his unresolved feelings for Brooke, is kryptonite to his resolve. How could he possibly walk away, let alone break off their engagement, if doing so might literally kill her? The guilt would be crushing, the responsibility overwhelming. Her illness becomes an unbreakable chain, a moral imperative disguised as a medical emergency, paralyzing him emotionally and making any move towards Brooke seem like an act of unforgivable cruelty. It weaponizes his love and concern against his own potential happiness, trapping him in a gilded cage of obligation constructed from Taylor's faux suffering. This deception isn't just desperate, it's a dark descent for Taylor Hayes, revealing the corrosive effect the decades-long war over Ridge has had on her principles. The compassionate healer, who once championed honesty and mental well-being, now resorts to the very manipulation and emotional blackmail she would diagnose in others. It speaks to a profound fear, not just of losing Ridge, but of being publicly humiliated again, of having her hard-won happiness snatched away by Brooke again, of being relegated to the perpetual second place in Ridge's heart. Faking a life-threatening condition is the nuclear option, a tacit admission that she believes she cannot win Ridge's love outright, she must force his presence through manufactured crisis. It transforms her from a wronged woman fighting for her love into an active antagonist in her own narrative, wielding her perceived fragility like a blade. The potential fallout is catastrophic. Should Ridge discover the ruse, perhaps through a concerned Steffi stumbling upon inconsistencies, or a suspicious Thomas questioning the timing, or even a genuine, coincidental health scare that exposes the lie, the betrayal would be monumental. The trust painstakingly rebuilt would be obliterated, potentially driving him not just back to Brooke, but into her arms with a finality born of utter disillusionment. It risks painting Taylor as the villain in the eyes of her children, her friends, and the audience, reducing her sympathetic struggle into a cautionary tale about the destructive lengths obsession can drive one to. Furthermore, even if successful in the short term, what kind of victory is it? A marriage founded on a foundation of lies and medical theatrics, where Ridge stays out of crushing guilt rather than burning desire, forever looking over his shoulder at Brooke, forever wondering if Taylor's next gasp is genuine or another performance. It poisons the very relationship she seeks to save, ensuring its inherent instability. Yet, within the operatic logic of Genoa City's sun-drenched cousin, this plot resonates precisely because it pushes the soap's core themes to their extreme. The bold and the beautiful thrives on the exploration of love's irrational power, the destructive potential of obsession, and the extreme measures people take when faced with profound loss. Taylor's fake heart attack is the ultimate expression of how far will they go? It mirrors classic soap tropes, amnesias, fake pregnancies, switched babies, but grounds it in the specific, established history of this character and this triangle. It forces the audience to confront uncomfortable questions. Is Taylor's action unforgivable, or is it the tragic, inevitable consequence of being perpetually overshadowed by the Bridge supernova? Does Ridge's susceptibility to such manipulation reveal a fatal flaw in his character, an inability to make clear choices based on authentic love rather than guilt or obligation? And crucially, does Brooke, often portrayed as the interloper, become the unwitting victim of this deception, denied a potential reconciliation based on Ridge's true feelings because he's held hostage by Taylor's fabricated crisis? Taylor's gambit is a high-wire act over a canyon of moral ambiguity. It's a testament to the character's desperation and the show's enduring commitment to melodrama that faking a failing heart becomes not just a plot twist, but a darkly poetic metaphor for the lengths to which love, warped by fear and rivalry, can drive even the most rational soul. Her calculated palpitations are the frantic, irregular beat echoing the show's central conflict, a battle for one man's perpetually divided heart, fought with weapons far more dangerous than words. Whether it secures her wedding day or becomes the tragic flaw that destroys her last chance at happiness, Taylor Hayes' decision to fake her heartbreak is a defining, devastating moment in the never-ending saga of Ridge, Brooke, and Taylor. Dr. Taylor Hayes, a brilliant cardiologist ironically cursed with a heart repeatedly shattered by the same man, crystallizes into a terrifyingly palpable threat as the news, or perhaps the devastatingly clear visual confirmation, filters back from Italy. Ridge Forrester, the man whose love has been both her greatest solace and her most profound torment, has once again succumbed to the gravitational pull of Brooke Logan. This isn't merely another painful chapter in their decades-long, soul-crushing triangle. It is the horrifying realization of Taylor's explicitly articulated worst nightmare, a scenario she prophetically warned Brooke about just before their ill-fated business trip, a plea born from intimate, agonizing knowledge of their intertwined history and Brooke's persistent inability to resist the pull of destiny, especially when unchaperoned with her husband. Taylor's demand for Brooke to keep her hands off her man wasn't just possessive, it was a desperate, survivalist plea from a woman acutely aware of her own cardiac vulnerability, a vulnerability intrinsically linked to the emotional cataclysms Ridge inevitably brings. The profound betrayal inherent in Ridge abandoning his renewed commitment to Taylor and their hard-won reconciliation, a commitment solemnized not just in words but in the shared hope of finally breaking their destructive cycle, for yet another entanglement with Brooke, strikes with the force of a physical blow, a cruel irony that the cardiologist who mends broken hearts is perpetually felled by her own, specifically by the actions of the man whose love she cannot relinquish. Fans of the bold and the beautiful, scarred by witnessing Taylor's previous collapses into Takotsubo cardiomyopathy, the very real, broken heart syndrome where acute emotional stress manifests as sudden, severe, and often life-threatening heart failure, watch with a sense of grim inevitability, a communal holding of breath, knowing that this latest, most profound betrayal is not just emotionally crippling but presents a clear and present physiological danger. The terror lies not in speculation if Taylor will end up in the emergency room. History and the crushing weight of this particular trauma make that seem almost certain, but in the chillingly plausible possibility that this time, the syndrome she has miraculously survived before might deliver the final, fatal blow. The sheer magnitude of this betrayal feels qualitatively different. It follows a period of relative stability and renewed commitment, a fragile trust deliberately shattered not by outside forces, but by Ridge's own, seemingly compulsive choice, witnessed by the world, or at least the Forrester creation's jet set. The emotional toxin coursing through her veins isn't just heartbreak, it's a potent cocktail of profound humiliation, the shattering of hard-earned trust, the obliteration of hope, and the terrifying specter of being proven right in her deepest fears about Brooke, all converging on a heart already scarred by previous stress-induced trauma. Critics and fans alike echo a morbid certainty, recognizing the narrative inevitability. As one astutely noted, the ominous absence in Ridge's recent vows, the lack of that definitive "I'll never leave you again," feels like a narrative landmine deliberately planted by the writers, a signal that Taylor's fragile peace was always temporary scaffolding awaiting demolition, with the return of her broken heart syndrome not just a possibility, but the foundational engine for the next explosive chapter. The pervasive dread is amplified by the understanding that Taylor's survival is no longer guaranteed within the story's logic. Having weathered the syndrome before, the dramatic stakes demand escalation, and what greater escalation exists than the very real possibility of death? Another fan's bleak lament, wishing they were not lucky enough for Grace to have faked Taylor's broken heart syndrome, underscores the terrifying reality. This isn't a clever ruse or a misdiagnosis. It's the terrifyingly real consequence of emotional devastation on a physically compromised heart, a condition with documented mortality rates, particularly in cases of recurrent episodes or extreme triggers like this profound personal betrayal. The potential fallout extends far beyond Taylor's hospital bed. A tsunami of rage is brewing, personified by her fiercely protective daughter, Steffy Forrester. Currently absent, Steffi's return promises volcanic fury, directed primarily at her father, Ridge, whose actions have directly endangered the woman who has sacrificed everything for her family. The thought of something catastrophic happening to Taylor while Steffy was unaware, unable to intervene or offer support, will ignite an inferno of guilt and rage within her. Ridge's justifications, his talk of destiny or confusion, will ring hollow against the potential sight of her mother fighting for life because of his weakness. Yet, the predictable, perhaps even more dangerous, target for Steffy's wrath will be Brooke Logan. In Steffy's eyes, and indeed in the perspective of many fans, Brooke remains the perennial interloper, the siren whose very presence near Ridge constitutes a predatory act. Steffy won't see nuance or shared blame, she will see Brooke, once again, deliberately destroying her mother's happiness and health, confirming every negative belief Steffy has ever held about her stepmother. The phrase, "she'll just blame Brooke," entirely resonates with the tragic predictability of their feud. Brooke becomes the convenient, hate-filled focus for Steffy's grief and anger, a target easier to vilify than her own flawed father, setting the stage for renewed, potentially devastating conflict between the Logan and Forrester families, all while Taylor fights the most critical battle of her life. The true horror of Taylor's situation lies in this terrifying convergence, the unparalleled emotional devastation of witnessing her deepest fear realized with Ridge and Brooke, the unique physiological vulnerability of her heart shaped by past trauma, the narrative foreshadowing inherent in Ridge's incomplete vow and the writer's history of using her health as a plot catalyst, and the amplifying factor of her daughter's impending, explosive reaction. This isn't just another bout of heartbreak, it's a perfect storm of betrayal, biology, and dramatic necessity, placing Dr. Taylor Hayes in the gravest medical peril she has ever faced, where the syndrome she understands better than anyone might finally, tragically, prove insurmountable, leaving her life hanging by the thinnest of threads, severed not by disease, but by the crushing weight of love's most brutal betrayal. The question looming over Genoa City isn't if she will collapse, but whether even her formidable spirit and medical knowledge can combat the fatal potential of a heart pushed beyond its limits by the one pain it was never designed to withstand again. The air in Dr. Taylor Hayes' elegantly understated living room, usually a sanctuary of soft creams and warm woods that reflected her own blend of professional poise and compassionate warmth, hung thick and suddenly suffocating. Sunlight streamed through the large windows, catching dust motes dancing in golden beams, a cruel mockery of the serene afternoon it purported to be. She'd been savoring a rare moment of quiet reflection, a cup of Earl Grey cooling on the coffee table beside a well-thumbed psychiatry journal, the familiar scent of bergamot and old paper a comforting anchor. The world outside her window in Los Angeles pulsed with life, distant traffic a muted hum, birdsong a cheerful counterpoint, a world blissfully unaware of the seismic shift about to occur within these walls. The knock on the door was firm, polite, expected, a messenger, perhaps from the hospital, or a delivery. Rising with her characteristic grace, a faint, welcoming smile already touching her lips, Taylor smoothed her silk blouse, the fabric cool against skin that hadn't yet registered the plummeting temperature of her impending reality. Opening the door revealed not a uniformed courier, but Stephanie Forrester, her posture unnaturally rigid, her face a mask of profound sorrow etched with lines of deep regret, eyes holding a storm of anguish Taylor hadn't witnessed in years. There was no preamble, no softening of the blow, the words fell from Stephanie's lips like shards of ice, sharp, final, irrevocable. "Taylor. I thought you should know. Ridge and Brooke. They've reconciled. They're back together. For good, this time." The sentence, simple in its construction, detonated within Taylor's chest with the force of 1,000 collapsing stars. It wasn't just information, it was the annihilation of every fragile hope painstakingly rebuilt after decades of emotional warfare, the erasure of stolen moments of tenderness with Ridge that had felt like hard-won miracles, the silencing of a future she'd dared, yet again, to envision. Ridge and Brooke. Back together. For good. The names alone were a litany of her deepest wounds: Brooke, the eternal rival, the force of nature who had fractured her marriage, her family, her very sense of self countless times; Ridge, the magnetic, tortured love of her life, the man whose soul seemed perpetually torn between duty, passion, and the gravitational pull of the Logan woman. For good. Those two words were the killing stroke. A visceral, physical wave of pure, unadulterated agony tore through her, radiating outwards from a point deep behind her sternum. It wasn't merely heartbreak, it was as if the very core of her being, the fragile vessel holding her love, her dreams, her resilience, had been violently crushed in an invisible fist. The air vanished from her lungs, not in a gasp, but in a silent, desperate vacuum. Her vision didn't blur, it shattered. The sunlit room fractured into blinding shards of light and terrifying, encroaching darkness. Stephanie's anguished face became a distorted smudge against the dissolving background. A high-pitched, metallic ringing screamed in her ears, drowning out Stephanie's frantic voice calling her name, the distant birdsong, the hum of the city, everything reduced to that deafening, internal tinnitus of utter devastation. Her hand flew to her chest, fingers clawing at the silk, not in a dramatic gesture, but in an instinctive, primal attempt to physically grasp the source of the unbearable pressure, the searing, tearing pain that was now radiating down her left arm with terrifying intensity, making her fingers tingle and go numb. It felt like a vice, impossibly tight, crushing bone and muscle, squeezing the life from her heart. Her breath hitched, shallow and ragged, each tiny inhalation a monumental effort against the crushing weight. She tried to speak, to ask if it was a cruel joke, to demand details, to scream her denial into the void, but her throat constricted, allowing only a strangled, guttural sound, less a word, more the death rattle of hope. The elegant room tilted violently, the floor seeming to rush up to meet her. Colors bleached into a terrifying monochrome gray. The cool ceramic of the entryway tile pressed against her cheek, a shock of cold that registered dimly, distantly, as if happening to someone else.